Now this is looking over the southern extreme of the farm, and you can see this is a view right out to the channel. Pretty spectacular, really. You can also see the way the trees sort of get swept across here. There's quite a lot of wind comes in here in the winter, and you sometimes see this kind of not really stunted but swept effect amongst the trees on the farm, which is rather cool, really. Shows the sort of dynamic nature of the weather around here. But the most beautiful thing about the farm, I think, is the view, where you can see out to the passing traffic, and you can sort of see this outlook that really just is spectacular. Now, I know when I was growing up, one of the biggest things for me was looking out here and thinking, I know my future's somewhere out there. I know it's not necessarily right here where I grow up, it's right out in that. And Africa's over there. So I was sort of right. But the idea was pretty much always there, that it's out there, and for me that's been a very big thing. Now I'm going to show you some other bits and pieces of the farm, some of the other views which you'll see from here, but that's always been part of it for me. It's a place to move forward from. Now, when we talk about the passing traffic, this is the traffic which we're referring to. I don't know if I can find this. Somewhere out there there's a ship. This is the southeastern corner of the farm, and it's really hard to find a more beautiful place on a summer's day than this. It is just spectacular, the view of the ships going by, and of the undercliff area of the southern part of the Isle of Wight. Just lovely. And the weather today is unbelievable. You'd never think that you're actually in England. Anyway, we're going to go up on the top of the Downs in a minute, and there's two or three unusual things there. There are some burial mounds. Now, these have been called Viking, they've been attributed to the Beaker people, and we know they are very, very old. And I believe there's a couple of our dogs buried up there too. And I think my mum might be out here somewhere in the dell, just down here, her ashes. But this has to be one of the most beautiful parts of the south of England. And I'm just so lucky to have grown up here. Very, very lucky indeed. This is the eastern side of the farm. It's quite windswept up here on the top. And in fact, this part of the farm is marked as a public footpath along the side of it, on the other side of this barbed wire fence. Now, for those people living outside of the UK, this is kind of an interesting phenomenon, because in the UK, much of the countryside is made accessible to the public. They're allowed to walk along public footpaths which border farms. You probably wouldn't find that in Canada or the States. Certainly wouldn't find it in South Africa. And this is the top of the Downs, making our way towards the tumuli, the burial mounds at the top. Now, this is the view east from the top of Week Down, and you can see a beautiful moorland, and across to the east there, that's St Boniface Down. Right at the end you can see a little bit of Wroxall, maybe a golfer or two, but also way over there, right up on the top of the Downs there, you can see an old installation, and in fact way back in 1940 that was one of the very first radar stations in southern England, used to spot the incoming raids from the Germans. Now, actually, the Isle of Wight has been invaded by quite a few people over the years, not least the Romans. There's a few Vikings around, and looks like armies of golfers as well. But the Germans definitely had plans to land here. That's not in question. There was a lot of bombing on this coastline, and even the French landed. There's a path nearby that leads up the steep cliffs, called the Cripple Path, and that path was named the Cripple Path because at the top of it was a church and a spring, and the spring was said to have special healing powers. And people would come across all the way from France to come up the Cripple Path, the people who were often crippled, to drink from that spring. So we've got a very international flavour to the Isle of Wight. So looking east, we can see out across, and very far in the distance you can actually see the mainland there. Not sure if it's going to pick up on this shot or not, but as we swing around first to the north and then northwest, now you see, oh, what's that? That is a grave, and that is the grave of someone who came from a civilization called the Beaker people. Now we're not really sure about this whole thing, but we're looking at about 3,000 to 4,000 years BC. This is very old. And yep, there's another one. And over here, oh, there's a third one. Now these have never been messed around with too much, thank goodness. And this site is fairly innocuous, not too many people know about it, which is nice. But it's a very special place. It's the highest point. I think it's the highest point on the Isle of Wight. If it's not the highest, it would be the second highest. But you can understand why these guys would want to be buried here. It's really quite a spectacular view. And no doubt, whoever was buried here was pretty important. No doubt at all. They commanded the best possible view, as you can probably see.